have a very interesting panel discussion on Shunya and the advantages of going Shunya. Anirudh, is this your phone? That's yours, Ashok ji. Yeah. Brahmagupta from our country was the first to clearly define zero as what remains when a number is subtracted. I think I'll put this off. What remains when a number is subtracted from itself and to explore all its properties. The concept of zero or shunya led to the concept of understanding nothingness. It later on led to it being represented as the symbol zero, now known as zero or shunya. It was during the period of 5th century BC that Indian scholars started using the Sanskrit term shunya to refer to zero or void. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time we reach out to Shunya or net zero once again. If you look at the old buildings in India, the Taj Mahal, Hawa Mahal, and even the new Lotus Temple, Bahai Temple in Delhi, which does not even have a fan, and even if it's 36, 38 degrees outside, you still feel cool inside. The earlier central courtyards and stepwells of Gujarat and all of India's ancient construction, our temples, our buildings were designed with the principles of sustainability. Indian architecture had the cradle of sustainability imbibed into every aspect of its earlier structures. However, over time we have modernized, went through a population explosion, and started erecting buildings with comfort built into every aspect of our lives. We in time lost out on our efforts of sustainable living practices. Currently, we are urbanizing at 6.7%. We are building 600 square kilometers every year, which is being added to our urban landscape. One Chicago is being added every year in India, and it is said in the next 10 years, we will add the entire land area of USA to our urban landscape. We are building 36 kilometers of roads every day. Target is go to 50 kilometers. And as we link city to city, the villages in between become towns, the towns become urban cities after some time. And therefore, as we move, already we are the most populous country in the world, 1.43 billion. You can call this an asset or not. That is for what this panel discussion is going to decide about, because we are drawing resources from Mother Earth, and you cannot keep on extracting resources from the womb of your mother without replenishing it. Your mother will die. It's very, very therefore important that we are going to be speaking today, ladies and gentlemen, about net zero and how, Ashok ji, even in high-rise buildings, how we are able to imbibe sustainability and make sure even those buildings are net zero. In fact, Sandeep is the chairman of the IGBC net zero carbon rating. And you cannot achieve net zero carbon unless you achieve net zero water, energy, waste, and therefore carbon. Our Prime Minister has promised that we will achieve net zero circularity by 2070. I want to ask each one of you, how many of you will live for the next 44 years? Will you? Huh? Kal ka to mujhe bhi nahi pata, but you can predict a little bit. So none of you are going to live for the next 44 years. Wow. You will. You'll get into a machine and become younger or change your looks also. You know, things are changing. Technology is changing so fast. Anyway, so it's going to be very difficult for us to wait till 2070 and this aspiration of achieving carbon neutrality. So we at IGBC have taken this head on. Currently, we are at 11.03 billion square feet of green footprint, 1,103 crore square feet. Target is to reach 50 billion square feet when India turns young at 2047. And some of my colleagues, Purva, Ankur, Sandeep, we all are working on this very carefully, we spend more time in sustainability than our own businesses many times. And therefore, I would like to invite my panelist on the stage, Dr. Architect Purva Keskar is a renowned ESG strategist and NABIT accredited EIA coordinator. She boasts a rich portfolio as director of VKE Environmental, with notable accolades, including award from Maharashtra Energy Development Agency and IGBC. She is a leading figure in green architecture, urban sustainability, and environmental management. Ma'am, can we have you on stage? Please give her a big hand. Architect Ankur Sangvi, an accomplished architect and energy specialist, holds a master's degree in energy and climate from Arizona State University, founder of Amos Architects. His notable contributions include designing India's third LEED building. Of course, IGBC used to give LEED certification at that time, and serving on committees for IGBC and Bureau of Energy Efficiency, shaping sustainability standards and green building projects nationwide. In fact, the Energy Conservation Building Code, which was primarily based on energy, you see the star rating on electric appliances, 1 to 5 star, is now going to be called the energy. It's already amended by IGBC, IPA, and ISHRE, and Ankur is part of that team also, where we are now calling it the Energy Conservation Sustainable Building Code. It will include water and waste. Ankur, please, can we have you on stage? My friend, architect Sandeep Shikre, does not need an introduction, but he is part of IGBC and also, as I said, the net zero carbon rating, chairman for the net zero carbon rating. He is also the chairman of the IGBC Bombay chapter. Let me tell you, in IGBC, I have been the chairman earlier, and therefore I would like to tell you this figure. Maharashtra contributes to 23% of the entire green footprint of the 11 billion square feet. So I think give him a big hand, Sandeep Shikreji. Please come on stage. Mr. Rajneesh Agarwal, an engineering and MBA graduate for IMT Ghaziabad, brings over 2 decades of expertise in building services with a diverse background spanning renowned organizations like Atlas Copco and Hitachi. His proficiency includes designing and executing various systems crucial for the successful completion of projects, currently leading Delhi's operations at Pankaj Dharkar and Associates. His experience ensures excellence across a wide range of projects, and I am going to put him on caller block because he keeps on calling me for early certification for many of his clients. And because if they don't get the certification, they don't get the FAR or FSI. So I'm going to block his calls very soon, from tomorrow morning, Rajneesh. I would like to invite Mr. Gaurav Malhotra, the Managing Director of Hans Grohe, how do you pronounce it? Groha. Hans Groha Group India, and a regional lead for hospitality, key accounts, and GP sales excellence in Asia. He is result-oriented professional with a proven track record in commercial strategy. His adaptiveness is driving alignment across diverse teams, coupled with his 6 Sigma Green Belt certification. I hope it's not judo or karate, because that seat is only left for me. So if I ask him the wrong questions, I may not be here tomorrow morning. Anyway, 6 Sigma certification underscores his ability to deliver excellence in both established and startup operations. So I will start. No, it's okay, don't worry. I don't want you beaten up before the panel. So I'm going to start with architect Purva Keskarji, who has come all the way from Pune. Thank you, Purva. You have been designing the built environment, including residential and commercial buildings, not only as a green consultant, but also as an architect. There is a wrong perception that green buildings are costlier. Can you address the cost difference between an IGBC certified building and a conventional non-certified building, both in the residential and commercial sector, and what is the reason for this?
Yeah, I think this is most important question, because generally whenever you think of sustainable buildings or buildings which are certified, you have a perception that it's going to cost you more. When we started working in the space of green building certification, we realized that the developers were not really aware of what is green, and there was a perception that it's going to be really difficult to implement the measures which are recommended in the green. However, let me just tell you that this increased in cost, which was earlier to be somewhere around 6 to 7%, was because these measures got an eyeball only after the design was complete, and if integrated right at the design stage on the design board, it is not going to cost you more, is what we have realized over time. Also, over time, the technologies are now become really cost effective, and any technology that you would want to put in a green building is no more costly. And therefore, in residential buildings, there is a finding that the cost of IGBC rated green building is, surprisingly lower than any conventional building. So why do you feel it would be lower? You can understand that it may be same as a conventional building, but how do you really, fathom that it's lesser than the conventional costs? The the story goes that, right now, with the air pollution and the GRAP being implemented, where the developers were struggling to comply to the air pollution norms, there were a few developers who had already gone in for a green building certification, and measures which are suggested in IGBC green homes on the site measures was that you have to have certain measures implemented to reduce the air pollution within your site. And I'm sure this is going to be also this is going to affect the ambient air quality as well. So these developers had already put in, surrounding compounds which had high wall, fencing, as well as, so this would not allow the air, polluted air to go out. Also sprinkling of water. So where do you get this water from? Many of the developers are working on multiple projects, and you find that you can get the STP treated water, so it should be treated water that you get into your site which is ongoing from a site which is already being operational, and that water can be sprinkled onto the site so that this dust which can be settled on site and which offers a better air quality not only to the ambient air but also to the people who are working on site, taking care of the health of the people on site. So such small things which are not rocket science contributes to your resilience in terms of being better at delivering good healthy environment for people. So here a developer had to pay almost a penalty worth 1 crore for not abiding by the air pollution standards which were just announced in December when the air quality had really gone bad in Pune. So this is just one example. So that is applied not only to residential buildings but also to commercial buildings. In commercial buildings, you have many typologies, and typically when you are into a type where you are going to use the building, it's common sense that whatever you are going to implement to reduce the energy usage of the building is going to give you benefits throughout the life of the building. One building that we are working on had an electricity bill of almost 70 lakhs per month. And by simple changes to the choice of air conditioning systems by way of looking at appropriate air conditioning systems, by putting in mixed mode air ventilation, we could reduce the tonnage requirement to almost 2/3, which meant that the capital cost also decreased when sourcing the HVAC equipment. So of course, the equipment is going to deliver the cost benefits, but if you start at the design stage, you can almost reduce the energy consumption by around 11 to 12%. So when you think of an electricity bill of 70 lakh per month, which means that by simply putting in your architect's thinking hat, by way of looking at your orientation, by way of looking at your opening design, by way of shading devices, by way of choice of materials, you are able to reduce your electricity bill to almost 7 lakhs per month. Imagine that if this building is going to be used for 20 years, also it makes a lot of sense. So it's not only operational energy, but also capital energy, capital costs that you are going to save. And this makes a lot of sense. So this is for starters. I would like to add more later.
Your starters was very long, huh? You went into lunch. Anyway, no, I'm pulling your leg. Anyway, Sandeep ji, she spoke that both capex and opex come down if it's a green building. What about the ambient temperature in a green building? If the outside is 36 degrees, what would be the inside without any adaptive or without any cooling inside the building? And why?
Yeah, so the straight answer is at least 4 to 5 degree lesser than the ambient temperature. Yeah, it's a very simple principle because the passive design plays a big role. The buildings are designed with the microclimate response. completely respecting the sun path and its influence on the building envelope. And these are the basic principles on which Indian architecture has evolved. In fact, we are the ones who taught the world what are the guiding principles of sustainable architecture. But over a period of modernization, inadvertently or unintentionally, we have forgotten those principles. So we say many times back to basics, you know. But just to give you an answer, definitely a building which is well designed, and I fully endorse what Ashok ji has said. High density, low rise is a good solution, definitely for the residential discipline, also for many other institutional buildings. So we should be very, very mindful before we commit ourselves to the high rise buildings. I would say high rise buildings cannot be fully omitted, but they can be optimized to make sure that we get larger land available for low rise, high density development. You know, because we are actually built as a low rise civilization, and we have to remain very, very contextual to that particular aspect of architecture.
I agree, but there are architects who want to now build eye to sky. And how will you tackle high urban density without compromising on the 5 elements of nature: Jal, Vayu, Agni, Akash and Dharti?
It's a very, very interesting question. The answer could be very long. So I feel another point which Ashok ji said is very, very important. The architecture has to be directed by the urban policies, and the urban town planning policies can be designed based on the objectives that every city or every neighborhood is getting developed. Okay, like in Mumbai city, if you'll see in earlier times, there were 3 different FSIs. There was a higher FSI available in town center, because naturally people knew that it will be an high density, most of it will be non-residential. Island city had a FSI of 1.33 and suburbs had a FSI of 1. You know, and Mumbai was so beautiful then, with everywhere that particular ratio of a footprint against the land available was very, very human centric, and people were happy. The happiness quotient of people was also very good, because everybody likes to be in touch with nature. If you see even today in these corporate complexes, during the lunchtime, everybody gets down. Everybody gets down and they get out of the compound to breathe the fresh air. They want to be in touch with the nature. So that's a natural inherent urge that every human being has to be close to our nature. So it's a quest, it's a dichotomy. I would only say that we need to balance the built environment and ensure that if it is high rise, for what purpose it is high rise, how it can become sustainable from the point of view of happiness quotient and the affordability of the end users, and probably then we will achieve what Ashokji's dream, that 100% residential, even in the megapolis. It can be definitely done in tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities, but in megapolis also that dream can come true. If we nicely, see, everything is possible once you have a will. If there is no will, nothing is going to be possible. Yeah. So if see now, okay, just to touch your point, in a redevelopment, we have been telling the government, don't give a FSI to a developer. See what is happening, we are into that vicious circle. Because what we do, there are a lot of slums. To rehabilitate the slums, we give FSI. But government job is to give a shelter to everybody. So these particular things can be given a shelter without giving an FSI. There are so many other incentivization can be done to accommodate the slums. You are giving more FSI, you are building more, then more cars, then more fuel emission. So you are into that vicious circle. There is various ways by which we have proved it to the government that if you spend per slum, you get hardly 20-25 lakh rupees to build a nice house, and they are willing to pay. All of them are also of a financial capacity where they can pay that 300 square foot of a house, the cost of construction. Why are you subsidizing it? And so on. So it's a very subjective issue. If you look at it in a very candid way, there are solutions. Okay, just to cut your long story short, people are realizing this post-COVID most, that how important it is for them to be nature friendly and be with the kind of a climatic zone they are staying. I think the story will evolve from the pressure of the consumer, and I'm personally very optimistic that in future, people will not be running after, I would say what it is, a very obsession driven kind of architecture. People are also buying less cars. I'm very happy with the Millennium. They are not fond of cars because car is another disease. In Mumbai, for every 1,000 square foot of a house, we have to give 2 cars. Means 1,000 square foot of a office has a 800 square foot of a parking. You are not realizing how much liability you are carrying because these parkings are in basement, in podiums, and they have huge operational energy and carbon requirements. So we have to go to the root of the cause. On one side, we are increasing the public transportation policies. On other side, we are not reducing the car parking requirement. So there is a lot that needs to be done at the government and the regulation level. Automatically, I think things will come in its own place.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. I'll go to architect Ankur. Even though 2/3 of India is still to be built, the current existing stock of buildings are not certified green and nor are they sustainable. Except for the 11 billion square feet under IGBC's green footprint, which is approximately only 12,000 projects. How do we tackle the existing building stock and how do we apply the existing building rating or the green residential society rating to the already built environment, and what would be the challenges to achieve net zero status or near net zero status?
So this is one of the most difficult questions, coming as it does from somebody who is the chairman of IGBC, who has seen the maximum growth from 7 billion to 11 billion. He has already taken us there. So I think you are better placed to answer this question than I am. But one thought I have was that if we actually need to move to the next level, we need to stop looking at buildings individually. We need to look at green at a neighborhood level. And the irony is that, we are sitting in BKC, which probably has the highest density of green buildings in the country. And yet, you do not have, BKC, which is a net zero neighborhood or a carbon neutral neighborhood. So just suppose, you have a program in place where, you are actually having say a 50,000 TR district cooling system for BKC, which is powered by solar PV cells, which cover the Meethi River. You have infrastructure over here, which is also green. Only then you can actually have a truly green neighborhood. And, we need to go one neighborhood at a time. So probably that is one of the ways forward. So we are also working on a project in Rajkot along with the Rotary Club of, one of the Rotary Clubs of Rajkot, where we have adopted a 1,000 dwelling village. What we are doing is we are putting in a 1.2 megawatt solar photovoltaic over there. We are not giving it to them for free. If we give it to them for free, you'll have 4 ACs per home. So we are actually charging 2.5 rupees per unit, which will be deposited to the panchayat. The idea is that this money will actually be used in collecting all the waste and segregating the plastic, recycling the plastic. And we want to make sure that this is actually India's first carbon neutral village. And we worked out the cost for doing this. We just need about 3.5 to 4 crores. It is not a very big number. It is achievable. We are probably about halfway there. So, to conclude, what you probably need is you need collaboration, you need will, you need the finance to be able to implement this, to get all the existing buildings going in for carbon neutrality.
Thank you, Ankur. Ankur, we have the knowledge, but we need to disseminate the knowledge to others, right? I'll come to Mr. Gaurav Malhotra ji. I have been working very closely through Indian Plumbing Association with the Ministry of Housing, Urban Affairs, the Amrut Atal Mission for Rejuvenation of Urban Transformation, where we are looking at 4902 cities getting 24/7 water and drink from the tap. Already 2 cities, Coimbatore and Aurangabad, are going to get this status very soon. So, since you come from the plumbing, fixtures and sanitary ware industry, and we have a code recently launched in 2022 on low flow fixtures and sanitary ware, IS 17650, part 1 and part 2, but currently the BIS codes are recommendatory. And even IS 8931 for fixtures is not fully adopted, even though 20 years old. So how, in your opinion, can we move to a low flow regime in all 4902 cities where we are working on 24/7 and drink from the tap water supply?
Yeah, thank you. I think, first of all, water is the elixir of life. I mean, it's an invaluable asset, but unfortunately very unevenly distributed across the world, and of course in our country as well. So I think there are two aspects to this question, and I'd like to touch a little bit on both the aspects. First is the role of companies like us, or for example, the sanitary ware industry. So I think there it is very clear that any facilitation of less water usage, ideally without compromising experience, has to be done. And I think Hansgrohe is at the forefront of that, right from our origins, which are at the Black Forest, and hence we understand what sustainability is all about, to a number of applications in our technology that facilitates our products, to guidance by our larger principles. So by 2030, all of our products will be eco versions. Every single product of Hansgrohe will be sold in its eco versions across the globe. By 2025, 75% of our showers will have an eco version available. So I think that's a huge commitment that the company is showing across the globe. But I think it doesn't end there. I believe that there is an extension of this, not just by the companies to come out with products, but by education, by working with organizations like yours. We just talked about it, that Hansgrohe also is a IGBC Green Pro certified company in India. This is done by listings of more than 400 products which are used in the houses. But also from an education perspective, because ultimately, you can get water and you can deliver water through a low flow fixture, but you need education of the consumer. We still have people who, if today were asked to drink water from a tap, would not, even if you were told that the water is, let's say, lead free, or for that matter safe for drinking. So I think there's a role from the political side for building infrastructure to doing that. There's a role from an education side from companies like us, but also from an industry in general. And then there is a role of the industry. And so far we are trying to participate in all of those roles. Thank you.
Gaurav, do you sing under your shower? Or your wife sings under the shower?
I used to, and then I married a music teacher and I stopped singing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So you save water, right? I'll go to Rajneesh Agarwal. Are you still alive, Rajneesh? Yeah.
Thank you.
Net zero is understood as reduction in living standards or consumption. Can you elaborate the concept of net zero and savings accrued by going net zero? What, in your opinion, would be the ROI to go net zero?
Okay. Thank you so much for a combination of questions. I'll start taking them one by one. The first is that net zero is understood as reduction in living standards. Now, the first question is, what is a living standard all about? We all grew up playing in the play fields, and now our children are in the rooms locked up with gadgets. So is it a living standard upgrade or a downgrade is a question. So whatever we see as a luxury, is it a luxury? So 2-3 points. One, Mr. Gurmeet Singh, when he introduced me, he said, I keep calling him that we need certifications fast and we get the FSI. Sorry, I don't get the FSI, I only get my fees. The developer gets the FSI. And the government's reward of going green is extra FSI so that he can build up. So it's like, a health certificate with a, roadside pani puri. Bhaiya tum acha health hai, but ye kharab kar lo. So extra FSI, is it the right reward? So now when we talk of consumption, see, consumption cannot be reduced. Only the wastage can be reduced. And I'm very happy that, the way the questions were moving, what Sandeep said and what Gaurav said about, the political role. Now, I think we are all confused that what are we talking of and what are we doing. I was speaking at a hotel conference recently, and we were a panel of MEP designers, architects, hotel chain owners, all debating about the energy saving, and we did not have a user in the panel. The person who consumes the maximum energy. So I made a point. I said, when I check into a good brand, Marriott or a Hyatt, why shouldn't IGBC come out with a certification saying that you're a good consumer? I mean, why don't you get a piece of pastry and a 10% discount voucher for your next visit saying that, sir, you consume 10% lesser water or energy as compared to the average spent? a lot of confusion starts when our government writes the codes. I was very surprised, and so would you be, that Gaurav, when the National Building Code says that in a residence, you should have 135 liters of water per person. Now 90 we are talking of. And if you are living in a 4-star and above, it is 370 liters. Why? What is the logic? I mean, we make bigger tanks, bigger STPs, bigger pumps, bigger infrastructure to satisfy whom? Nobody takes a bath 3 times a day in a hotel. Gone are the days. Nobody uses the bathtub as we thought so earlier. So I think consumption cannot be reduced, so wastage can be reduced and it must be reduced, and the government should be focused. Another problem which I shared with my one of my respected senior, V. Suresh, who's going to be the next NBC chairman, I said the NBC occupancy is a farce. You say 14 square feet per person in a gymnasium. I mean, today we have got 10,000 square feet of fitness center, and blindly we divide 10,000 by 100 by 14. Can you accommodate so many people in a fitness club? Can you accommodate 15 people in a 200 square feet room and they will have equipment to gym? I don't think so. A banquet hall, 0.6 square meters. I mean, why? Why are we writing such rules? We have to be more practical. We have to consult the hotel owners. Let us get data from them and let us build practical. And we are over populating the building. Now, coming to the second question, what is the concept of net zero? Very simple. I understand the things very simple, that the greenhouses, the gases which you say, the carbon dioxide, methane, they are the present. This is a God gift to the mankind. If there was no carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gases, the world would have frozen. These gases have the ability to absorb the heat and keep us warm. But by producing more of carbon dioxide and more of greenhouse gases, we are going to global warming. Because, and this is net zero, we are trying to maintain the equilibrium which the God had gifted us, that we give out carbon dioxide and some of it is stored in the plants and other places. So that is net zero for me. So that is what we are all talking of, that whatever are we giving out and whatever is being stored is the net zero equation. So I think that is the simplest answer I could have given to net zero. And what is the ROI of going net zero? So if I start eating healthy, what is the ROI? Nothing. If I start eating vitamins to make me fitter, the ROI could be I don't die. But there is no return on the vitamins which I eat. So net zero, that may not have a direct ROI, but it has so many benefits. Number one, you are seeing your reputation goes up. If a company is trying to go make greener developments or net zero building, people say yes, wow, your brand equity goes up. Your employees, they become more productive. They become more loyal to you. Your customer base increases. So these are the indirect ROIs which will contribute, and I think all of them put together definitely makes a sound business proposition, but everything is not ROI. Survival is bigger than ROI. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll go to architect Purvaji. Last week, your company VKE won the award given by Life Call for Ideas as part of the mission Life of the Government of India. This was based on the Eco Nivas, Samitha and passive design. Can you elaborate the green features and savings in your design, please?
Yeah, I would take it forward from where, people were talking about education of common man and the demand from the common people for creating, good, comfortable homes. And this was a kind of an competition which wanted us to design some small enclosures which would demonstrate the benefit of, designing and specifications of the envelope to be affecting the thermal comfort inside the enclosures. How do you really communicate this to common people, and how do you, then raise the demand of such kind of housing? When I was working with the master's course, we went to a village and we studied the village. And in Maharashtra, there is a material called karvi. It is a kind of a plant which grows and flowers every 7 years. The flowers are blue in color. And typically in the vernacular architecture, this carvi is actually used for walling with mud as the plaster. And when we went there, we studied, we realized that, this is a material which can be really used and probably commercialized later. We could train people, in the nearby villages to build with this material, which would be like, say, maybe ferrocrete, or it could called as carvicrete for that matter. And we designed that, we had got some funds for that, and when we went to the village again to take our designs to the stakeholders who were wanting that kind of built up, we realized that the women who had the self-help group denied using our design. They said, we don't want this design because we don't believe, we want concrete structures. So these ladies who were in the villages were aspiring for concrete structures. While as when we were working with Econivas Sanhita, and Sandeep knows this, when we are working for Mumbai and Pune, because that is the area that was given to us to work with, we realized that most of the developers are going high and using a lot of concrete. And without that, they would not even dream of building. So they were using, aluform structures, and which needed poured concrete. Now, when we started looking at ENS compliance, which is Econivas Sanhita code compliance, we realized that it was not going to be possible to make such projects ENS compliant. So what do you do with these buildings? However, you reduce the envelope, or rather the windows, because ENS talks about a combination of benefits of the window sizing, of the material thermal properties, and in combination, we tried doing everything possible to make these, buildings Econivas Sanhita compliant without using a insulation. So by way of use of insulation, it was possible, and we almost approached 30 developers from Pune and Mumbai to take up this project, and we got a denial. So when we entered this competition, we said, why not? Why not start by using something which is a problem, which is a RCC poured kind of walling and roofing, and then create these 3 enclosures which would make them compliant and which would deliver thermal comfort inside the enclosures. So that was a winning idea, and we used these structures and made them compliant by way of using different materials in combination with concrete. And now this was installed on 1st of March. It is 1 ton of ice was placed in these enclosures, and the enclosures were locked. School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi, is doing some research. They have put in some, measuring instruments inside to measure the indoor air quality, outdoor air quality, ambient temperature, surface temperature outside and inside. And I'm sure that, in the next, on 9th, which is day after tomorrow, these enclosures are going to be opened, and the ice is going to be measured. And common people were invited to see these structures and look at the ice which was melting and predict which enclosure would have more ice. And there is a competition now again where we are awarding common people who have predicted the right kind of prediction that which enclosure would behave better. Now all these enclosures look the same. The enclosures look the same, but they have different specifications, and that is what matters. So this research is happening in Delhi right now live. If any of you are in Delhi, please do visit. And we are interested again to see the temperatures inside, outside, surface temperatures inside, outside, and learn from it. So this was a very interesting experience for us. And I'm sure it is going to give us a lot of insight into how these different enclosures are going to behave.
So can I have ice which does not melt in my whiskey?
You'll have to keep it in an enclosure.
I'll have to keep myself in an enclosure. Okay. Anyway, I'll come to Sandeep ji. Sandeep ji, you are the chairman for the net zero carbon rating of IGBC. You're the architect of this rating. Can you elaborate on the features on how we can go net zero carbon? There are already 100 projects in IGBC which are in different stages of net zero: water, energy, waste, and carbon. So can you throw some light on what the net zero carbon rating is all about?
Yeah, of course, it's very subjective issue. Just to sensitize the audience which is here, the today's global GHG emission is 8.4 billion ton, and there is a 1.3% historical growth which has been observed for last 15 years. So with the same speed, if there is a 1.3% growth every year, by 2050 this GHG emission will go to 14.8 billion ton, and that will then lead to temperature rise by 6 degrees centigrade. Our target of keeping it below 2 degrees centigrade, it will go for a toss. And this is a real story. This is not something theoretical. This is a real time story. And we don't have time with us. We have to ensure this risk is properly mitigated, and lot many things will have to be done. That's why 90% of the countries have signed the carbon neutral agreement, and India has also signed that by 2070 we'll go carbon neutral. Like Ashok ji said, we are yet in that zone where 2.3 ton per capita is allowed, and we are below that. But very soon we'll cross that milestone if we keep doing what we are doing it now. That's a sensitization to the people. Sustainability, Gurmeet, when we started 2 decades back, it was voluntarily, but carbon neutrality is going to become mandatory. I am personally foreseeing that within 3 to 4 years the code will come that every architect and developer will given a carbon number, and he or she will be told that you have to build within this carbon number your premises. This is going to come. This has already come in some of the countries where San Francisco observes the carbon number, UK, in certain places they are observing the carbon numbers. So in a nutshell, this is a very complex and an intense battle where we don't have our numbers in place. We don't have our data. Exactly what is the carbon content of our concrete? What is the carbon content of our so many construction methodologies? So the first step that our fraternity, all architects, engineers, all the societies like IGBC and other societies will have to collect the data. We have to ensure that whatever we are building, how it is tangibly, it can be measured, and then we can start mitigating it. And of course, first battle is to have less is more. Every square foot that we are going to build should be questioned. Do we really need it? It has to be low rise. It has to be simple. It has to consume less. Then this battle will be won. So we have to reverse the whole cycle and be very careful. The statutory department will have to appoint a special commission to quantify the square footage of the work. Just to give you an example, why are we building so many parking? Can't we not build, like Ankur very rightly said, we can't do it in isolation. If I charge the aquifers in my compound, it's not going to help unless my neighboring people are doing it. It's not going to serve. So we came up with the solution, and we gave the papers to municipal council that take a precinct and say in this precinct mein agar 1,000 families are living, a common parking de do. Why everybody has to have their parking under their building? Why? And that common parking will be calculating the diversification factor. And when those people go for an office, that parking can be utilized for the people who are coming in that community for shopping and other things. That way you can reduce the number of parking to 1/10. 1/10 of what has been built. So many car parking lots are lying idle. And trust my word, in 3 years there will be a competition given that how do you repurpose these parking lots. And that much embodied energy and that much operational carbon which is going to go in nowhere. So many such things I can keep talking. So in a way, we have to go back to our codes, our rules, collectively sit down and reduce the amount of construction that we are going to do it in future, encourage adaptive reuse, repurposing of old structures, try to live more simple, and take away all that unwanted extra embodied energy that will save the operational energy, and that will lead us somewhere going towards a net zero carbon. Otherwise, this battle is very, very tough. Very, very tough. Let me tell you, we are 16% of the target from what our Prime Minister Modi has said in 2024. You know, our net zero goals, we are not yet there. 16% there is a gap. And if we keep doing madness, that gap will widen. So it's a very subjective issue, but I think I'm an eternal optimist. It all can be done. Our young generation, I have a lot of hope in them. And collectively, we should win this race.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. I'll go to architect Ankur. Again, we'll touch on carbon. Buildings, as we know, are responsible for 40% of the carbon emissions worldwide. 11% comes from materials used in building. Sandeep spoke of embodied carbon. How do we address this issue? On the other hand, operational carbon from buildings is 28%, And out of this 28%, 75% comes from energy consumption, especially air conditioning. How can we reduce operational carbon in buildings, and is there a chance to go net zero carbon?
I think the picture which Sandeep has painted shows that we don't have a choice. We have to go net zero carbon, number one. The second thing is that, the numbers that we talk about, whenever you go for a very efficient building, say you go in for a IGBC platinum rated building, what happens is that the embodied carbon that you pay up front is so much higher that if you compare it to the operational energy, it takes almost 30 years of operational use to consume that much carbon as has already been put into your embodied energy. So embodied energy is something which is very, very important, number one. The solution lies in something that Purva was talking about earlier. Using local indigenous materials. There are certain materials like hemp, and you have hemp blocks, which are carbon positive. And if we actually, think out of the box, look at new technologies. Today, I think Reliance is almost using 700 square feet per ton, which was unheard of just 5 years back. We are talking about 150 square feet per ton. So you have new technologies, you have new approaches. We are talking about mixed mode ventilation, we are talking about night cooling, we are talking about, cooling down the structure using economizers. So this is the only way we can go about reducing our operational energy. So the future is we need to change our way, we need to change the way we think, we need to change our comfort standards if required. And that is the only way we'll be able to approach the target that we have been given of going carbon neutral by 2070.
Ankur, my drawing room in Nepinsi Road is 800 square feet. I have 6 tons of air conditioning. Is that right? A 200 square feet bedroom, we normally put in 1.5 tons of air conditioning. Am I right, Sandeep? So my drawing room of 800 square feet has 6 tons of air conditioning, and I'm the chairman of IGBC. So no, no. Reliance Copper Kerne, 580 acres. We are air conditioning 700 square feet with 1 ton of air conditioning. 13,000 employees. Reliance Jamnagar, also IGBC certified, 23,000 employees, 1 ton, 850 square feet. How is it possible? It is possible, and it is implemented, it's there. We won't talk now of the design factors and all, because otherwise we'll sit here till 7 o'clock in the night. So we can reduce operational carbon if we design buildings correctly as per our ratings. You spoke of embodied carbon, so did Sandeep. Purvaji, in IGBC, we have a Green Pro program. So what are we doing? Are we looking at a cradle-to-cradle approach? Are we looking at a cradle-to-grave approach, energy efficiency, reuse of materials, high recycle content, recyclability potential? How many products do we have that are already certified for their embodied carbon and for their green attributes?
Yeah, so the introduction of IGBC Green Pro was a really good thing that happened to the construction material manufacturers, is what I feel. When IGBC started the green home or rather green certification for buildings, it had a section of materials. And these materials were in the characteristics of the materials were mentioned in a very conceptual way, which said that, you should have a local material, you should have a certain percentage of recycled content in your material, try and reuse the material, and all this was pointing to low embodied energy. But the numbers were not there. So I think it was a very good start. And I think it was at the right time that the Green Pro came in, because then it started looking at quantification. So when people were comfortable with certain baseline measures that each manufacturer was taking in terms of use of resources and generation of pollution, the Green Pro came in. And today I think we have around 8,000 materials which are Green Pro rated. And every day people are inquiring about Green Pro, because I think even if you want to export your material to any other country, you need an eco label. And Green Pro was kind of really attested by the world Green Pro rated, rather Eco-Labeling Council as one of the type 1A eco-label. So I think it is a good start, and I'm sure it is going to gain a lot of confidence from the Indian vendors and manufacturers.
Thank you, Purvaji. I'll move to Mr. Malhotra, Gauravji. India has 17.65% of the world's population, still growing only 4% of the world's fresh water. We read in the papers few days back that Bangalore is run out of water already. And this morning's paper talks of the Chief Minister of Telangana also asking his flock to start saving water because there's no water in Telangana for tomorrow or for our children. Now we have 4% of the world's fresh water. As a leading fixture manufacturer, what is, in your opinion, does our economy and policy have to do to protect water and the environment? Because without water, I would like to ask everybody this question. My cell phone here, do you know how much water it takes to make this cell phone? Anybody? No, Rupesh, you can't answer. You're from IPA. So, I'm giving 1 lakh rupees if anybody can answer, except Rupesh. And he can't prompt. Anybody take a wild guess? Huh?
We'll pay 50% to Rupesh.
नहीं, इधर घूस अलाउड नहीं है. IGBC में घूस अलाउड नहीं है. तो how much water does it take to make this cell phone? 2,500 liters. 2,500 bottles of water to make one cell phone. And you have the audacity to change your cell phone every year? This is what we call, 1 minute, this is what we call virtual water. Every product needs water. A t-shirt takes 900 liters to make. I am repeating this cell phone, you can check it on the internet, 2,500 liters. So kindly understand, it's not about the water consumption, human consumption. Every product that you use, like we talk of embodied energy, embedded energy, embodied carbon, we also have something called virtual water, and I wanted to bring this up today. Nobody won 1 lakh. Rupesh, you will not get anything for raising your hand. So let's get back to the question, sir. What are we going to do for our country and how will we make India water secure?
I think the first answer that I'd like to give, and especially carrying on from what ma'am said, is that we are IGBC Green Pro rated as Hansgrohe India. More than 400 of our products, which are important from a consumer perspective, are Green Pro rated. So first is that. But I think, you pointed out one fact that is extremely important. If you look at water consumption, and Gurmeet ji, we talked a little bit about it, but if you look at it, more than 70% of the fresh water is used in agriculture. So I think the first step starts in looking at that industry and how one can look at, reducing water usage or even recirculation in that. The second is 19% for industry. I mean, you talked about the cell phone, and I don't have 1 lakh rupees to give, but 10,000 liters are used in jeans. Just one pair of jeans is 10,000 liters of water. So I think domestic usage is 11%. That also shows that while we have a lot of work to do on 11%, I think there are industries that are coming up. Lithium-ion batteries is something that we keep hearing about, but these industries use a lot of water as well. So there's a lot of role to be done over there as well. Well, as far as domestic usage, you talked about some figures, 135 liters going down to 90 liters now. I think as a supplier of products, it's our job to ensure that the human experience is maintained by using less water. Starts with our commitment, as I had already mentioned, about converting our entire range of products into eco versions, which use less water, but also technology. So we have fixtures which we call as a cool start, where we don't necessarily have heating. In homes like Bombay, you don't want water to be heated from your basin mixer. I mean, what are you going to do with that? Maybe in the shower you have an option, but nothing for the lap faucet or for the basin. So we have something that is using only cold water for that. You can still have a mixer, but it generally starts from zero. We have technologies that are embedded in our showers. We have some beautiful products shown over here, where you get a shower as if you're drenched in a lot of water, but you consume probably only 1/3 of the amount of water that a typical shower head is used. So there's also a spray called Powder Rain, which also reduces a beautiful shower experience to just 9 liters per minute. Normally industry would talk about 30 liters per minute. We have WCs, Hansgrohe has just got into ceramics, which are now obviously, we talked about dual flush. It's no longer 6 and 3, it's even gone down to 4.5 now. So there is every aspect of consumption that we are evaluating. As a luxury supplier, it's even more difficult, to be honest, because luxury is all about experience. But I think that's where even more expertise is needed, that you do not allow a person to feel compromised while supporting sustainability by using more water. So as a company, those are the directions in which we are moving, and I believe we are going to, our role is only going to get stronger. Right.
Gaurav, what do you feel about a mist bath rather than water droplets?
Yeah. You know, Hansgrohe introduced a concept called the bathroom of the future. This was introduced in Ish, which is Europe's biggest plumbing show. And we talked about reducing water consumption to 90% by 2030. And a part of that was also using steam. I'll let out something. The Germans never say mist because in German it means something else. But the idea was to integrate steam into hygiene, and definitely that's also a part of the process ahead.
You have some Swedish manufacturers already having some mist tap, some device which they put on the tap, you know.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Rajneesh ji, can you elaborate on the net zero rating tools and the importance to achieve the Honorable Prime Minister's dream of carbon neutrality, both looking at passive design, including the orientation and envelope, and active design, including energy efficiency and use of renewable energy?
Thank you, sir. So, I think it is very important to have a rating tool, because unless you gauge what are you trying to measure. So, I think IGBC again took the lead, Gurmeet. I think IGBC took the lead in coming out with the net zero rating tool in 2021.
21 was the net zero energy, then
Yes.
net zero water, then
Correct.
net zero waste to landfill, and now in October, Mr. Sandeep Shikre launched the net zero carbon.
Correct. So, it's very simple. You know, the marking scheme is something which makes a lot of sense. 75% of the marks are awarded when you reduce your energy level, and 25% weightage is given to your renewable energy. So first step is to reduce. And when I say reduce, it is not only reduce, it is reuse also. And reusing, now I think ECSBC code is now talking of grey water treatment separately and black water separately. For the people who don't know grey and black here in the audience, grey is what comes out from your bathroom and your wash basin, and black is what comes out from WC, or the urinal is black. So the grey water will have to be reused. In Singapore they do it regularly for so many decades they're doing, because they don't have water. So they drink it.
They call it new water.
Absolutely. So that's what I think we'll have to do, and rating systems will have to become more progressive, and we will have to not only give the certificate to the consumer, but we'll have to go back to the government and tell them that your regulations also need to be regulated. We are learning that there are some things which can improve in your building codes, which will help us. Now, a very simple thing, if an architect designs a whole campus which has got 10 or 12 buildings, you need one fire pump room, one tank of 2 lakh liters of fire. But if you've got 10 small buildings next to each other, you make 10 tanks of 2 lakh liters. I mean, why? What is the logic behind it? I mean, why doesn't the government chap will come and penalize you if the STP quality is not good in the outlet water? Why doesn't, when the government sells the land, why don't they put up a STP and take all the water and a common STP? Why not? Why don't they have a common genset? Why don't they have a common fire tank? 10 buildings having 10 pumps?
In fact, you need decentralized STPs the way the cities are growing.
So, I think this is what we have to look at, a radical change in our thought process, and we need to think very differently. And finally, I think the passive design is what everybody has already spoken. You know how, starting from architect Ashok Lalji, that how the chhajjas keep the heat out of the building rather than bring them in and then try to, treat the heat. So I think passive designs have been always much better. Popular, the Hawa Mahal was made a Hawa Mahal when the air conditioning did not exist. So I think a lot of but I think the good thing happening is that we are all getting sensitized. We all are talking about it. We are having such discussions, and we are applying our mind towards something which we had ignored for a long time, which is the result that we are here, what we are today.
Thank you, Rajneesh. I will not take any questions from the audience because we have already overshot time. If you want to ask any questions to any of the panelists, please do so offline. Pooja, will you take over? Let's give a big hand to all the panelists. Yeah.
I have only one. I have
Yeah,
only.
yeah, yeah,
I have
Sandeep.
only one thought for everybody, especially who's Mumbaikar here to give. If you change one rule, Gurmeet, in Mumbai, that is a rule of parking, will save 70% embodied energy and embodied carbon. Trust me. One rule if we'll change of a parking, we will save 70% of the future embodied carbon. All the Mumbaikars who are here, please think on this. Meet me offline. I'll be happy to educate you more on this.
If you change one chairman of IGBC, he may save his wife with him. Thank you everybody. Please give them a big hand.